and welcome back to another episode of Sitting in a Car. I'm Sarah Sproul, and I sit in a car every week to help you raise a confident and caring young person who respects themselves and the people around them. Okay, and this week's question is, I'd like some help about talking to my 14-year-old son about pornography and inappropriate presentations of women. So pornography, I've just done an episode on pornography. At the time of recording, I released that last week. So go back through the channel and see if you can find that. It was to do with pornography and sexting. But let's talk about how women are portrayed or how women are represented in all different sorts of media. And let's find out how we can talk about that with our 14-year-old sons. First things first, I'm going on my own experience here, and I'm just going to tell you one thing straight away. If you constantly berate your son and go all in about how women are portrayed in the media, you are going to start to ostracize him. And that's fair enough, because the reality of it is all genders are portrayed in stereotypical ways in the majority of the media that we see, whether that's, sexually explicit media, pornography, advertising, cinema, TV, YouTube. There are stereotypes everywhere we look. So my first recommendation is to be broad about this and don't just focus on one little aspect about how our teenage sons might be seeing women portrayed online. Second point is, the earlier we start these conversations, the easier it's going to be. The person who's asking a question has a 14-year-old, so she's going to be starting at 14 years old. But for the rest of us, we might have younger sons, younger daughters. The earlier we can start talking about stereotypes in media, the easier it's going to be for us. We're going to start setting a culture of, in our family, we are detectives. We are 007s. We start looking around the world and start working out what are the messages that are being sent to us, what are the unwritten rules, and how can we spot them to make sure that we aren't controlled by them without us realizing it. Okay, so let's then, the third point, have a look at what the stereotypes are for women and men, or boys and girls in the media. The question is about women, so let's talk about that. Women, or people identifying as female, body types, usually they are slim and sporty, long legs, small waist, maybe large breasts. It sort of depends which culture you're raising your kid in. In the culture that I'm in, it's all about large bottom, small waist, reasonable sized breasts, clear skin, long flowing hair, smiley happy face. In sexually explicit mainstream content, because there's lots of different types of pornography and sexually explicit material, but in mainstream content, which is something like Pornhub, you will often see, big bum, small waist, large breasts, hairless genitals, hairless body for that matter, lots of flowing golden or brunette locks. So just keep an eye out, what are the stereotypes, and we're going to start pointing those out, because the stereotypes don't portray the reality of all the different types of human bodies. And that goes for men's bodies as well. What are the stereotypes for men's bodies? And for a 14-year-old, my huge recommendation is to you to start talking about something that makes sense to him. And he will be well aware of what his body is like, how it's growing perhaps, or maybe that it's not growing yet. He hasn't sort of gone through puberty. So to start pointing out, what are the expectations of a body like his in our world? What does he see around him that makes him expect things of his body? Okay, so that will be, for male bodies, oftentimes broad shoulders, narrow waist and hips, strong muscly legs, shoulders and arms, maybe hair, maybe not hair, sort of depends what sort of media he and you might be looking at. As a general rule, less hair, I would suggest. Just going on Love Island this year, there was a big sort of through topic of hair removal, particularly for Anton. Now, at the time of recording, this is 2019, so that's the Love Island I'm going off. If you're watching this into the future, your Love Island may be slightly different. Okay, so we've been talking about bodies, but what are the stereotypes of behavior? For women, and it's useful for our sons, our people being raised as male, to get a grip on this. Women are often socialized not to initiate things. So particularly things to do with physical intimacy or sex. So maybe in mainstream pornography or in even like mainstream cinematic TV, movies, whatever, it may be less common to see a woman approach a man and initiate some sort of physical intimacy. Oftentimes it will be the man initiating that. So that is a stereotype that you can absolutely point out. And my recommendation would be not to lecture about this sort of thing, but maybe make a comment or ask a question. If you're watching something on TV together, or you have an opportunity to point something out, you might say, I'm noticing how men always seem to be the ones that have to start a kiss or have to ask a person out or have to, whatever it might be. You can ask your 14-year-old, what do your friends do about that? What do your friends think about that? Instead of asking them what they think, because that's a lot of pressure. As with most questions I'm asked in sitting in a car, consent is the answer to this question too. We can start showing our 14-year-olds that people can be up for lots of different things. People's bodies are interested in a lot of different things, but to know for certain what that person wants, we need to find out directly from them without making assumptions and without pushing for our needs to be met. Most of us want to learn how we can talk about what we like or what our body is like or what we enjoy, and to be able to learn to listen and find out the information from another person about what they like, what their body likes, what they're into, how they would like to spend time with us, how often they would like to spend time with us. So going back to the original question, how do we talk to our 14-year-olds about inappropriate presentations of women and girls? We are getting back to this core central idea that everybody is different. And just because we see women and girls or people identifying as female presented in the media, whether that's sexual media or mainstream media, in a certain way, in a stereotyped way, doesn't mean we make assumptions about all girls, women, and female identified people. We need to be constantly checking in and asking. That is the basics of consent. That's the way we keep ourselves happy and we remain respectful and interested in the people around us, which is a great, strong basis for interesting, exciting, supportive, and healthy relationships going forward. And that's another episode of Sitting in a Car. I'm Sarah Sproul, and I'm here to help you raise a confident and caring young person who can respect themselves and the people around them. Bye for now.